This is a special episode because it's with my dear friend Peter Shallard. And right before this episode, I was thinking about our relationship. And we've had some magical moments, just some
We
magical
have.
moments. Some crazy stuff has happened. We've been to Lithuania together. We saw Karl Lagerfeld basically on the floor next to us. Do you remember that?
No, what?
Do you remember? So in Lithuania, we were speaking at a conference. Seth Godin was speaking at a conference, and Karl Lagerfeld was like sandwiched in there. And he went up on stage, and he basically, well, number one, he tried to convert everyone to Catholicism, and then the second thing he did was he was like, "I'm gonna wait," and he just basically like laid down on the stage while like 10,000 people were watching him in the largest stadium in Central Europe.
It was the largest business conference in Europe, like period. It was a massive sports arena. But wait, I think you're thinking of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, that is who I'm talking about. You're right.
Yeah,
How could I
yeah.
forget?
It's funny. Yeah, the fact that it was Jean-Claude Van Damme wasn't even the strangest part of it all. But yeah, he told the crowd that the world was going to end, and he laid down on the stage and did breathing exercises for a while. Um, Totally get that you might misremember because it feels like a dream.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring you on the show because you're the shrink for entrepreneurs. And I feel like I've got a few stories with you, but I feel like you've got just hundreds, thousands of stories because you're working with a lot of some of the most well-known people. But before we get into that, how do you define what a shrink for entrepreneur is?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be chatting. Shrink for Entrepreneurs is, my background. I'm a psychotherapist by training. I am an entrepreneur, sort of. My first business, well, I am an entrepreneur. When I started, I wasn't. My first business was a brick and mortar therapy practice. And so what I did was kind of very long story short, build a specialty in working with founders, a lot of founders in tech, a lot of venture-backed founders, helping them with psychology, with therapy, and then as you and I have discussed, what I kind of ended up doing was taking the world's greatest lifelong MBA program, because by working with these people, I got to learn as much from them as I was helping them with their psychology. So I've been at this for best part of 14 years now, and it's been the world's greatest MBA that I was paid to take. And so now I get to talk to my clients not only about psychology but business strategy as well. And literally every single entrepreneur I work with has the same story about what happened right before they met me, which is, oh, I went looking for a therapist. I knew I wanted to do, some therapy, some coaching. I knew I wanted to optimize my thinking and behavior. And then they just have this weird experience of talking to someone who just completely doesn't get it, right? Like there's this sort of, it's almost like a civilian attitude of just not knowing how entrepreneurship works, that unfortunately most people who specialize in therapy, they couldn't be further away from the coalface of entrepreneurship, and they just don't get it. There's this gulf of misunderstanding. And so yeah, it's kind of world's greatest niche that I stumbled upon.
And okay, so walk me through how you actually help people like me.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I generally meet people like you the morning after the darkest night of the soul. So I tend to think about, like any type of therapy is, you tend to reach out and get started when things are very, very bad. So I meet a lot of people in crisis. There's a lot of, over the last decade, there's been a few VC funds that will have me on speed dial for when a founder that they believe in and they want to lead a company kind of has one of those crisis situations where if it goes badly, they might end up not being the right person to lead the company. So I'm usually a resource that's put in to help the founder accelerate their personal growth and development when the company is such a rocket ship that it's like, doubling every couple of months in size. It's the founder is waking up every day to a totally new business because of the scale and the speed at which it's scaling. And and their job as CEO is changing so rapidly that, like, it's totally reasonable for anyone to kind of get some whiplash from that. So what I help founders do is accelerate the rate of their development as operators, as leaders, their interpersonal skills, their ability to do really great investor relations. And I do that by helping them really iron out their cognitive biases and blind spots. So, any areas where a limitation in their thinking is causing them to not see the truth of what's going on. And this is where this conversation can get really fractal, right? Because we could talk about thousands of different examples. But a good one for a founder who's really winning is like being a foil for their hubris, right? It's really easy for people who have quick wins to get carried away, and start to believe that everything they touch turns to gold, and lose their kind of psychological calibration to what the actual result is, what's going on in their business. And they might be winning when they start feeling that way, but they may not notice it when they stop winning, right? When problems start occurring. And so part of what I do is provide this like radical hit of self-awareness for entrepreneurs by being somebody that they're talking to who's like objective, who's outside of the fishbowl, who's helping them see reality for what it really is. So pretty abstract, but hopefully that makes sense.
Could you? Yeah, I want to take a few minutes to selfishly get you to coach me right now.
Let's do it. Therapy for Greg. Let's go. How are you doing, Greg?
How am I doing right now? Amazing. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and I run a holding company, so I run a bunch of different startups. So that's like a roller coaster on steroids. There's
Several roller
tons of
coasters at
companies,
once, right?
roller coasters at once. So sometimes it's helpful for me just to like take a step back and just extract myself from the situation and like go somewhere like Charleston and sort of rebalance myself. So that's what I'm doing right now, rebalancing, and it's been awesome. I feel awesome. To answer your question, I feel great.
Nice. And what is it that you think you need to focus on when it comes to your thinking and behavior to really crush the next 12 months? What type of Greg do you need to be for this holding company you've built?
I would say the most important decision that me and many founders can make is ignoring the noise. It's so easy to chase shiny objects, especially if you're running a studio and a holding company, because the world is
Mm.
your oyster. So, what I'm trying to get better at is, for example, yesterday, there was the Apple event.
The brightest of shiny objects.
And there was a lot of really cool stuff that's gonna, like, transform our businesses, but at the same time, like, do I need to be, like, stopping what I'm doing and watching it and spending the whole day just kinda, digesting what's happening? Like, probably not. Like, I probably can take a Saturday morning, catch up on it in a more leisure way, and that's probably more healthy for my well-being than sort of being really, really, "Oh my god, I need to go stop everything and rethink everything while it's happening."
Right on. Yeah. So what you're talking about is a real important key to mental health. It's the principle of agency and volition that one of the big things that can change our like relationship to stress, overwhelm, our ability to focus isn't even really about what we do, right? Like you might watch that keynote start to finish, but it's about being in control of the choice so that you're the one with the agency, that it's not Tim Cook deciding that 10 a.m. Pacific on a Tuesday or a Monday or whatever is when Greg stops work and focuses on this. It's about you having the agency, you being the one who's in the driver's seat. Because even if you're tactically getting distracted by the bright shiny object, at least you're choosing to. You've got a thesis about when it's right to do that, right? So you don't need too much therapy. You're doing it right, Greg. You're very smart. Staying in charge and deciding these things is important because the Apple event's like a big one. It only happens once or twice a year. But I think these social media platforms can be really dangerous for entrepreneurs because they'll look at a tweet that they're just scrolling on the phone while they're sitting on the john before they start work on a given day, and they'll see something really interesting that's one of those bright shiny objects, and it can feel like, oh, this is game changing information for my industry. And whatever they intended to do that morning's out the window now because they're going down this rabbit hole of like learning. But the rub is like, and this is what I kind of want to find out from you is what is the rubric for deciding? Like, I think you're someone who would have a really interesting answer to this because with a holding company, ostensibly, you are looking out for really interesting new opportunities, right? How do you what type of criteria do you have mentally at that earliest stage when you find yourself getting sucked in and getting curious and seeing the possibilities? Like, are there like green lights and red lights for you mentally about like, do I lean in? Do I go further? Do I look into this thing? Because if you do that all day, then the stuff that the mature companies that you've got opportunity to scale are going to wither on the vine, right? You can't do it all. So how do you decide?
A few things. One is, or if you're listening to this, I'm pulling up a coffee cup. It's an empty coffee cup. And why is it an empty coffee cup? Well, number one, I love coffee. But number two, I only go on Twitter while I'm drinking coffee. I call it the coffee framework. So I drink a coffee in the morning and a coffee in the afternoon. And while I'm drinking those coffees, like I'm allowed to go on Twitter. That's when I do my tweets. That's why if you look at most of my tweets, they happen between the hours of 9 and 10:30 a.m. Eastern, because that's when I'm generally having my first coffee. And I allow myself to basically be like, take it all in, just go wild, go like it's an all you can eat buffet for Twitter,
Mm.
in the morning and then in the afternoon. When I'm, if I'm on the John, so to I'm gonna want to pull out my Twitter, and I just try to refrain from doing that. And it's just about setting these systems for yourself so that, I always say, don't let push notifications push you around. And that's the second thing, which is, I don't know why 99.9% of people do not have do not disturb mode on at all times. Like, do not disturb mode should be the default. Should not be you're getting buzzed every single time something happens in the world.
All notifications off by default.
Off by default. Like, what are you doing? And I try to do this so I can actually have like the time and space to like think about, okay, like, what do I want right now? What is good for my businesses? And it takes me from being on the defense to being on the offense really quick. And this is something that I've been doing for like 6 and 8 months. And it's really, really, like, it's literally transformed my business.
That's incredible. So when you do have something that I'm just turning this into an interview, less of a therapy session. When you do have something that you really like, when you have an idea, when you have the very beginnings of something you think you want to pursue as an entrepreneur, how do you know internally? Like, I'm curious about your psychology. How do you know internally this is something good that I should look like, that I should explore, versus like, those very natural mental dialogues we have where we're like, that's a distraction, I've got to stay away from it.
So I don't know, man. I built like an intuition, and you just got to trust your gut. Like, there's a reason why we have our guts, and
Mm.
there's a reason why we feel certain things. I'm laughing to myself because I was chatting with my co-founder Theo, yesterday, and I was like, and I quote, "We should do X. I'm 100% sure it's gonna work." And then he's sitting there like, 100%. Like, what are you? Are you on crack? Like, the 100%. How are you sure that
Yeah.
if we're gonna go build that product or do that thing, that it's 100% chance? And sometimes you just gain so much conviction based on your gut that you need to follow your gut. And
Yeah.
I wish, like in my 20s, I followed my gut sometimes, but I really followed other people's guts. I would be like, okay, if Kevin Rose from Dig is building a video startup, I need to build a video startup. Or,
Mm.
Kevin Systrom from Instagram is starting, a news app. I should build a news app. And now I'm kind of trying to like ignore as much as possible. And with the hopes that the stuff that I create becomes way more, as Seth Godin puts it, remarkable, something that you'd make a remark of.
I mean, this is one of the most kind of common cognitive biases that can trip up entrepreneurs who have like got something and they're running with it, right? Is that imitative desire that's driven by starting to like form a peer group. What a lot of people who are starting out don't know is that it actually gets worse the more successful you become, because you start to feel that you're sort of at the table with some of these amazing people. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, the more traction they get, the more success they create, they start to pay more and more attention to what their peers and also the people who are just a little ahead of them, who might have pretty big profiles, like what those people are doing and what they're reacting to and what their insights and their mental calculus is about like the next big thing. Hence, Kevin Rose is doing a video app, you have got to do a video app, right? Like, a lot of that effect actually becomes harder to resist the more kind of experience that you get until you get a level of maturity, I think, an intellectual maturity out the other side of it, where you learn to put those things aside. And that's one of the big things that I'll try to help entrepreneurs really focus on, is this idea that people like Kevin Rose, to use your example, or other like A-level players doing really interesting stuff, they're reacting, like their insights, their strategy that they might be like building in public, right, and tweeting about or whatever. That stuff comes from their reaction to like primary sources of information. So they see things happening in the world, and then they go and build something because of it, and then they talk about what they're doing. So a lot of entrepreneurs pay attention to what these people are saying about what they're doing, and they get that imitative desire. And one of the ways that you can fix this cognitive bias is by focusing, if you are going to consume information, on the primary sources, so that your intuition, your instincts are reacting to the same information that these people like Kevin Rose are also reacting to. Because you're more likely to form a unique point of view if you're looking at what's happening in the objective world and thinking, what can I do with that? Like, what could I build with that? Rather than looking at, hey, what are these people doing? Right. And how are they reacting to the real world, to reality? Because there's a Plato's cave allegory there, right? If you're just watching where the other people are moving to, you're not seeing what it is that they're moving toward, right? Like what their reaction is. So um, there's a terrific opportunity for entrepreneurs who can figure this out, to trust their instinct, and that's the path that you're going to take to develop a unique point of view that's going to build a product that, look, it might succeed or fail. Like when you say you're 100% certain you should get after something, the way I read that is you're 100% certain that it's going to be really, really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be a really big win, or it could be like a spectacular learning experience. You're
Yeah.
100% certain of like a potent outcome.
Exactly, and that was actually Theo's response. He started laughing, and because he knows how ridiculous it is to say something like that, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, so what you're really saying is, how do we win even though we lose?" Which I think was a
Right.
really interesting way of framing it. What he means by that is, okay, crazy founder CEO guy, I understand that you're have got a lot of conviction, but this feels like a 0 or 1 thing. Like it's either going to really be successful or it's going to fall flat. How do we make sure that if it falls flat, that we still learn? Because in the holding company model and the product studio model, learning is also helpful because you can basically say, like, okay, I learned this, how to do Twitter ads or whatever, and I can apply that to, even though we spent $50,000 on Twitter ads and it went nowhere, we can actually apply that to another one of our business.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. We were jamming about this recently when we hung out. I think there's been a really big shift that with the holding company you're at the front of like needing to the strategy of getting after opportunities where there's obviously a win, but then failure is like an actual other win, like a real concrete win. Because I think we're coming out of a period. This is what you and I were chatting about, of like big investing in technology companies, a lot of hype, kind of reached its absolute peak in 2021, where, and in that VC model, it's like go big or go big or go bust. That like you want to be swinging for the fences. A lot of people were shooting at crazy big ideas where they were 100% certain it was going to win or be an absolute massive failure, right? And when there's enough capital floating around the system, you can like rinse and you can take those shots. But now there's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to I guess like chase after ideas where there's an opportunity at really big success, but even taking another fork in the road is like a different type of success, right? Like trying to build a really big scalable company, but if it doesn't go so well, you accidentally build like a small cash flowing business that runs itself. These
Yeah.
types of dynamics, I think we're going to see more and more of.
Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about VC versus non VC a little more. So, and it relates to your whole idea, the idea that like people are sort of following other people and copying other people. What's that book? The mimetic.
Rene
Called?
Girard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone in Silicon Valley knows the name of that book, but I can't remember it right now. Yeah.
I mean, the point of that book is basically that like people buy things that other people buy to self-identify.
Right.
And when you think about venture capital, that is a business that is like it's all about trends, and it's all about following what other people are doing. So if crypto is hot, people are going to invest in crypto. If now VR is hot, people are going to now invest in, the new Apple Studio companies built on top of that, Apple Reality Pro or whatever they're calling it. So like, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago the metaverse was dead. Now the metaverse is back. Is the metaverse going to die? You know what I mean? So it's like you're just VCs are just investing in companies based on these trends, and
Mm.
what ends up happening is you just see a influx of companies that look and feel very similar that are attacking a space, and one of those are going to win, or a few of them are going to win, and then they're going to have outsized return. The problem with that for entrepreneurs is you end up following what, you end up changing your business to be in one of those spaces. So I just wanted to like, that's just an observation I've had. Curious your thoughts on that. And then my question to you is, like, what percentage of the people you work with are bootstrap versus VC, and how do those, like, are those similar entrepreneurs? Do they have similar challenges? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I'd say about maybe a third, maybe 40% of the clients I work with in general are bootstrappers. I love them. I think that like there's some bootstrappers out there that'll turn you green with him, right? Like the types of businesses they've built, the lifestyles that they enable. It's incredible, and it's a lot. You front load the effort. It's a lot harder when you start a bootstrap company. No one's offering you awards. You're not getting written up in TechCrunch. No one knows you exist, right? That those early years are like all grind. Whereas, and I think this is what is so compelling, and what was so compelling about the last decade of like crazy venture capital, like froth and growth, is that, yeah, like you start feeling like a winner as soon as you get a meeting at like a major fund, right? There's all these, from a psychological point of view, there's all of these proxies for success that are immediately accessible or short term accessible along the path, which is like a really long path to building a successful business that actually makes money, right? That like creates value in the world, that convinces strangers to pay money at a good margin for that value being created. That journey could be like 5-10 years long, but when you go down the VC route, you can immediately start celebrating because you're getting written up on Forbes 30 under 30, right? Like you're at the pre-seed stage and you're booking meetings with really big investors. You're telling your friends, you're getting patted on the back for that. Let alone like getting to your actual first round of fundraising, where a lot of naive entrepreneurs feel like they've won. They pop a bottle right on the night that the funds wire for their seed stage, not understanding that they're now obligated to a bunch of investors to work their ass off to build something that has a spectacularly high odds of not working out, right? Like they now have a contractual obligation to grind really, really hard. And a partner who's done their part because their part was writing the check and providing the capital, and now it's all on you. And so psychologically, I talk a lot about this dynamic that I call the action result gap, which explains like a lot of human behavior, right? When there's a gap between taking an action and getting a result, it becomes difficult for human beings to do those things, right? Like there's an obesity epidemic. The reason that so many people struggle to be in really great shape is that to get in really great shape, you have to take the action of like working out and eating salads, and the result doesn't really kick in for like 3 weeks, right? If you like work out every day and eat salads every day, 3 weeks later, maybe 2 weeks, you'll step on a scale and be like, huh, and you'll get a result, and there'll be that like dopamine serotonin experience of like, wow, like this is working, I'm getting sexier, this is cool. But those 2 weeks are really hard for us psychologically, right? Because of the gap between taking the action and the result. Whereas a donut has no action result gap. You see it, you eat it, you take a bite, you immediately have that chemical experience, right? Your brain is bathed in these exciting neurotransmitters. You've got fat, you've got sugar, you're enjoying yourself. No action result gap. So it's a very compelling thing to do. This is all an allegory for venture capital, right? When you can get high off of filling your calendar with meetings for your pre-seed company, when you close that pre-seed round, right? You haven't built a successful company. You are not at the ultimate result, but you've lined up all these little results, these little proxies for the things that you ultimately want that feel really emotionally compelling. And that's why people get sucked in at a psychological level. It's highly motivating because trying to build a successful business to $1 billion exit over 7 to 10 years is really hard. And that's the biggest action result gap of all. But closing your next round is like in front of you in the next 30 days, right? And so it gives us these kind of guardrails neurologically to go focus on, to chase those highs that we ultimately need to inspire action. So bootstrap is a monks, man. They have like a lot of mental discipline, because you have to really have a vision, you have to believe, you have to be able to see what is possible and pursue and like live through this action result gap. I think the cool thing about it is that, like, on the other side, you get maximum freedom. I think most entrepreneurs have like share a value of freedom. They want autonomy. And bootstrappers are the ones who figure out that you can have it if you sacrifice it to begin with, right? Because you're you're severely constrained when you're starting out. You're using your customers to fund your business. You're making promises. Like, a lot of amazing bootstrappers started with the model of delivering services so that they have immediate cash flow up front, and then building product that like creates some scale, with the margin that they make. And so, like, that's a lot of work. That's like you basically have a job for working for your customers so that you can build a product and a business that can put you out of a job one day. Um, so yeah, long journey, big action result gap, but a lot of cool stuff on the other side if you can handle it.
And it's tough because you're like, I just quit my job at Google making $300,000 to go start an agency doing services. And now I have like 20 clients that are, emailing me all the time and texting me all the time. And this doesn't feel like freedom, and I get that, right? Like, and you're making less. So you have to really, really believe in what you're doing and be true to the path. And also, like, I see a lot of bootstrappers that like will leave a company like Google, start bootstrapping, and then like 3 months later I see like they change their LinkedIn to like now they work at Shopify. It's like, no, you have to, this isn't something that you can just try for 90 days or 60 days and expect a result. This is something that you have to have a serious time scale. Like, I don't know if it's 5 years, but at least 12 to 24 months of like, hey, I'm going to go and build this thing. It's going to be bootstrap, and I need to hit this goal of 20K MRR or whatever it is in order for me to continue. Quick interruption from me. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you're getting any value, you need to come to YouTube and subscribe to the Where It Happens podcast YouTube channel. I promise you the experience is richer, more interesting. So if you're getting any value, just stop what you're doing, open up the YouTube app, go to the website, and press subscribe at Where It Happens on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Go press subscribe. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, I think every entrepreneur to some degree is like motivated by freedom. And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the high autonomy environment of just like going and raising money, getting venture funding behind you, actually creates that freedom, right? That, like, so this, when you've got some operating capital in the bank, what most early stage founders discover is they have this huge amount of autonomy. There's not like a ton of supervision or scrutiny, right? Like, your investors, if you have them, they're not like micromanaging your time. But that's really dangerous too, because you're in this totally isolated state with a ton of money, that other people's money, that you've got to figure out how to build something with. There's a purity to bootstrapping where you don't have that fake kind of freedom, right? Because you realize, you're like, oh man, I've just traded my job with one boss at like Google or wherever for a job with 24 bosses that I'm deeply accountable to. And they want things, and they want it to be fast and quality and cheap all at the same time. And they're like blowing me up about it. And I don't get paid to sit in meetings anymore. So it does feel a lot like that isn't freedom, but it is I think fundamental principle that everyone needs to understand is that nothing of substance or lasting value is created without somebody like experiencing the discomfort of like putting the work in and making it happen. So yeah, it takes a little while to get to that place.
You mentioned before around, people filling up their calendars with VC meetings and, raising these pre-seed rounds and people thinking like, great, like now I've made it. I had a call yesterday with a founder who's raised $600 million, multi-billion dollar uh, valuation company, and he's trying to figure out what to do. Like here's a guy, like you expect once you have hit unicorn status and you've got hundreds of millions in the bank, like you're good. And it's like no, like he if anything, he's like even more stressed trying to figure it out.
I have a client with a company with north of a 2 billion, it's a 2 point something billion-dollar valuation, who yeah, has there's like problems that exist there. They have a liquidity problem. I have to be careful about how I, frame this to give you like the light touches while protecting their privacy. But the business is big and successful, but it's not quite hitting the metrics it needs to have a successful IPO, and it's too big to buy. Right, there's no player in that space, in that vertical, that can come along and like acquire it and give the founders a payday. So guys worth hundreds of millions on paper, and like struggles to come up with a down payment for a house in a major city, and like in the big cities in North America. It's wild.
He's worth hundreds of millions on paper, but like you said, on paper. Like to me, like there's a bunch of founders that right now that are worth a lot on paper that are going to have crazy headwinds like within the next 6 to 9 months because they're going to have to recap their companies. And that the founders are they're going to realize, wow, this venture thing, this is not as attractive as I originally thought because the other thing is for most founders who take venture capital, especially at like the series B, C, D, and E stage, these boards could fire you at any time. So imagine starting a company, raising $600 million, doing this for 12, 14 years, and recession hits, not even like, you did your best. This is an outside externality that's happened. Recession hits and they're like, okay, thanks, Peter. It was great knowing you. Here's like a 12-month severance package. You'll have your stock, but like we're gonna go and recap this company, which basically is another way of saying like we're going to change the ownership structure of this company. And like see you later. Like that's a reality.
It's a tale as old as time. Yeah, happens all the time.
Versus you're bootstrapping and it's like you are the captain of your ship.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of, I mean, to sum it up, to put a bow on what we've been talking about, I think a lot of people start out the journey of entrepreneurship motivated by freedom. Right, that's what they ultimately crave, is that autonomy, that sense of being the captain of their fate, the master of their soul. And then they start thinking about what's the best way to go about this. And you have to be really, really careful, if that's you, what types of strategies you start imitating. Because if you start chasing after like proxies, artificial versions of that freedom, like the freedom you think you have when you raise some seed capital, or like, whatever, then you can really quickly end up in a place where freedom is the last thing that you feel, where you wake up every day, stressed, obligated, with this enormous pressure upon yourself to, to go and perform. Because yeah, that is what success looks like for a huge number of, and we're talking now about champagne problems, right? Like about the top 1% most successful people in that ecosystem. That is what success looks like. And so yeah, I think I love that you're kind of banging this drum out there in the world, because I think bootstrapping will always be hard, because it's like a front loading of the effort, right? Like you're taking the hits, you're taking the knock to your freedom at the start, where you've got to find a way to sell the services, do the work, manage the clients, do unscalable, like unsexy things to pay the bills, so that you can, like, I think it's totally feasible to spend 20% of your time in your first year of entrepreneurship as a bootstrapper building the product that's going to one day liberate all the rest of your time, right? Like it can really be, you might spend 80% of your time just doing fee for service type work if you're just starting out. That, my journey was exactly that, right? Like I built a therapy practice trading my time for money, and for a long time it was just a journey of increasing my prices. Like if my lifestyle if I wanted to have any upward mobility, I was like, guess I got to charge more. And after several years of doing that and succeeding to the point that my roster was booked and I had this great network of entrepreneurs referring me business and all that, I looked around and was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this for the rest of my life. I've got to find something that scales. What can I do? And that was when I started just like tinkering and iterating and playing with ideas. And it was really hard because I would do it on like Friday afternoon, right? Like a time that not many people want to go to therapy. And when I had some free time in my schedule, that was when I would build and play and experiment. But I mean, for me, it was like, I was living in New York City. It's not a cheap place to live. It was like 90%, 95% of my time was fee for service so that I could build something that could make money, without me being the central engine in the machine.
I want you to talk about what you built with Commit Action, but I also want to let you know that when you told me about Commit Action, probably like, I don't know, 12 years ago or something, when did it start?
Yeah, I mean that would have been when I was like having the idea that it became, like the very beginning. Yeah.
When you told me the idea, I was like, in my mind, I was like, you are crazy. Like, why would you do this thing? You're at the center of all these, big venture-backed startups. You know people like Seth Godin and all these well-known people. Like, why would you go and create a service like this that could max out at 20 million, 40 million a year in revenue? That's like what in my mind I thought about. And probably in my mind even less than that. In my mind I was like, this is a $5 million business. Fast forward to today, I'm like, man, like you did all the right things. You literally did all the right things. You took a service business where you were making money, you learned about the problems, you productized it, you learned how to scale via profitable marketing channels. You never raised a dollar. You have a good name, and it's been compounding ever since. So tell people what it is, because I think a lot of people can learn from your how you did it, and let's go.
I do have to just clarify though. I did raise some money, and I want to shout out Human Ventures. They
Right.
a VC who actually understands the holdco model. One of their most successful companies in their portfolio. They're building in this way. They have a huge stake in CKBG, which is the parent company, the holding company that produces a bunch of spirits companies. And so I came to them with the idea, like they're building this really cool business there in a similar model to the way you are at Lake Checkout. And I came to them with the same idea. I was like, I want to raise the first and last round for this company, a little bit of jet fuel. And, to their credit, they were like up for it. They saw the vision. And so we did it. But yeah, I just want to, for all the shit we're talking about VC, I want to shout out to the people who get it.
Well, the side note to that is someone needs to create a venture fund that is called last round ventures, first and last round ventures, where
Yeah.
you take money. It's like a bootstrap business, but it's like a little bit of money to actually like get you to profitability, and that's it. Like there's no
Totally.
expectations that you're gonna raise more.
I remember when we closed, their one of their GPs and this sort of CFO of their holdco was like, "Look, dude, this is a great idea, and if it pays dividends one day, that'll be a win."
Yeah,
And like that's a cool partner to have.
yeah.
So yeah, shout out to those guys. What was the question? How do we?
What's Commit Action and why is it cool?
Yeah, Commit Action is the company that I built that was out of my services business, and it's a productivity company. What we do is a coached weekly planning ritual for entrepreneurs, for creatives, for executives. We solve a problem. If you're one of these people, you're working in the knowledge economy, your ability to succeed is dependent entirely on how well you execute on the big bold ideas that you have. And so we're a company dedicated to improving the focus, the execution, the ultimate personal effectiveness of entrepreneurs, and people like that, by helping them combat what we believe is the primary cause of people's lack of focus, right? The big problem in 2023 is not people not being passionate enough, not wanting it enough, lacking access to like how-to guides or whatever. We like our cup runneth over with that. It's the isolation that entrepreneurs and creatives and execs often have to build and execute within, that causes problems with their focus, their productivity, that causes them to self-sabotage and procrastinate. So what commit action is a real simple coached weekly planning ritual where you actually work with somebody, one of our highly trained ninja productivity coaches, to sit down and plan out the highest leverage use of your time every single week. Then you've got someone on your team, right? Commit action enables you to hire this pro effectively to be your dedicated focus and accountability guy or girl whose singular job is to keep you focused and in the zone at all times. So we're the only productivity company in the world that, rather than focusing people on checking off a bunch of to-dos or project management, we just care about what is the highest leverage use of your time, and are you carving out even just a couple of hours a week to work on that thing, that picking up the ball and moving it forward for like whatever's next for you, whatever creates the growth. So it's a coaching company. It's a weekly planning ritual is ultimately the what you get. And the way it works is, as a subscription, you sign up on a monthly membership and you get a weekly planning call with a coach every single week, and they stay in touch with you. They build a plan for you. They set up a bunch of appointments for you to do deep work, appointments you set with yourself to show up and work on your biggest opportunities. And they hold you accountable to that calendar, that set of appointments, by staying in touch and texting you and whatnot throughout the week. So yeah, it's like having a personal trainer, but for your productivity rather than just working out.
And from a size perspective, could you share a little bit about like scale, like how many customers or like how big is the business?
Yeah, we've worked with thousands of customers. We've scaled it up to close to about that $5 million mark at this point. So it's kind of funny because yeah, you were right. Like when you thought about that idea, I mean, I'd kill to get it to 40 million, and I think we will. But that's kind of where we're at in terms of annual revenue. And what's amazing about that is that we make a profit every single month. Where we're growing, and there's like a crazy economic model attached to the business because we create a ton of value in the world. So the
Yeah.
secret to our, if you want to like pop the hood, the secret to our business model is that the service really works, right? Like if you want to check out, we get third party verified reviews on Trustpilot. People describe the experience of having a personal trainer for productivity as like life changing. The copy is so exuberant in the testimonials people just write themselves that we can't use them in marketing sometimes because they're so over the top. It's almost cringeworthy. It's like kind of frustrating. I'd kill for like a 4-star, like this was pretty great, to just like make us look human,
Mm.
make us look normal. So it really really works, and the secret is customer retention, right? That we have these clients who start the service and recognize that it's like a mental gym membership. It's when you're dedicated to fitness and you find a trainer who gets you results, like why would you ever stop? Then when you're an entrepreneur, you find this way to be productive and focused that creates ROI in your business. In most cases is like 10 to 50x the sort of annual return on investment for what they might be paying us. You just keep doing it. And so we launched the company as like an alpha pilot, and it was just pure services, right? Talking about bootstrapping, we had no software platform, we had nothing. It was just pairing people up with coaches on my team to do this weekly planning ritual. We have clients from the initial alpha pilot who are still with us today. We've had people who have been with us the best part of a decade, and just voting with their wallets every single month, being like, this is something meaningful, this is something that works. And so yeah, that's what's been like a big key to our success, is just refining. I've spent years refining the service, refining the methodology to make it really effective. We built a science advisory board with the professor of neuroscience at Harvard Medical School, with the professor of positive psych at NYU, to just get to the bottom of like, what is the evidence, what is the real science, what's the evidence-based way to help entrepreneurs be more effective. And so we just, that's the thing about bootstrapping. You kind of have to effort max. You have to grind absolutely every aspect of your business. So we just had this idea and then systematically sat down at the beginning and said, how do we improve the shit out of every single part of this, every single little interaction? And ultimately scaled to building an engineering team in house and building our own software all to create the ultimate weekly planning ritual for entrepreneurs.
How much have you I mean, how much have you optimized marketing and marketing channels? Because we've talked a little bit about optimizing retention and the product itself, but how much are you doing like R&D, essentially marketing R&D in terms of new channels to bring customers in?
A little bit. As a kind of a bootstrapper, my tendency is always to focus on the product first and foremost, right? Like that's really what I've been getting after. So I will say like I'm better at building an accountability coaching methodology, technology, et cetera, than I am as a marketer. Like I've got a lot to learn when it comes to marketing. But we did have some wins. I mean, we've built marketing channels that have like a sub 30-day payback on customer acquisition cost, which is like a super awesome key to
Yeah.
scale. So we figured that out a couple of years ago, which enabled us to ramp up. We're always looking for new stuff. Right now, I'm in the very early stages of experimenting with organic content. It's something that I tactically decided to ignore for many, many years because I was building, I wanted to build something bigger than me. And I had built a sort of a personal brand. Not that I was famous on the internet, but I was pretty well known within certain circles in the entrepreneurship world. So for me, commit action was a journey of like focusing on product at the expense of, I've kind of let this organic audience building thing pass me by. And
Mhm.
now I'm putting some more focus on it. Now that the commit action's like up and running and pretty much runs itself at this point from a day-to-day basis, that's I've started a little YouTube channel. I'm posting some stuff on Instagram, I think just like you.
Mhm.
Yeah, just experimenting to see, like, we've learned a lot over the last few years about helping entrepreneurs be really effective. And we have a ton of like information that's really useful, I think, like science about, really counterintuitive things about what it takes to be really focused and really effective as an entrepreneur. And the cool thing about selling a real meaty service, right, is that we can give away all of the information for free, right? Like and that's kind of the journey that I'm on right now, is I'm trying to figure out the right formats and the right way to just kind of share our methodology and teach anyone who wants to pay attention how we do things at Commit Action, how we turn entrepreneurs into these execution powerhouses. Because yeah, you can, the secret to it all is, we have a lot of techniques, we have a lot of amazing methods, but at the heart of them is human accountability. And that's, from a science point of view, one of the biggest levers human beings have to improve their behavior, their output, to become more focused, to become more effective, is figuring out how to use social psychological engagement, like connection with other humans, to keep them focused. We're social primates. We're hardwired to perform at our best when we're connected to others, and that's what our business is built on. Yeah.
The reason why you're gonna win as a organic content creator is a fewfold. Number one, you're known as the shrink for entrepreneurs. That itself is super memorable. Like when you have a memorable name like that, you're playing on easier mode than hard mode. The second is your point of view on this stuff, like productivity and unlocking growth. It's a unique perspective. So it's not like you're remixing other people's stuff. You're basically, the whole concept around it being like rooted in science, I think is just a really fresh take. So I think once you're putting out content, like having a fresh take, I think outperforms and really, really gets people excited about you. And so I'm excited. I think you're gonna crush it based on those two things. Which platforms are you most excited about? You mentioned Instagram, YouTube. Like, what do you think is gonna work the best?
I don't know what's going to work the best for me, right? Like that's where I'm kind of like, I'm the most curious right now, is like, where do my sensibilities and like, what the algorithms are rewarding right now kind of overlap? Like where's the Venn diagram there? I would say I'm just in general extremely bullish about YouTube as a platform in general. Like I think it is insane how the legacy media just sleeps on YouTube. in terms of the size of the audience there. There's also been, I gotta like take my hat off to Google for this. There's been an absolute transformation of YouTube as a social media platform. Most people don't really think of it as a social platform, but if you get into like self development, self improvement YouTube, there is a bunch of like people anonymously commenting and interacting in there in the most wholesome way possible. It's like it's such a good vibe. So it's like I think we are watching a generational shift from television to these platforms, and I think YouTube is, I think it's already huge. It's way bigger than most people realize. And I think it's just getting started. It's going to be bigger and bigger. So I'm really excited about that place, about that space. I also think part of the magic of it is that it rewards effort, right? Like the people who are succeeding on that platform are, they're grinding. They're kind of coming around to the level of production that like people put into television shows. And so I think I'm always interested in competing in a space where you can win with quality, because I like that. Like I want to make, if I'm going to make something, I want it to be like top shelf. And so yeah, I'm excited about that platform for that reason. I also just wouldn't take a bet against Meta, right? Like I think, the stock price has got hammered in the last few years. People talk a lot of shit, but there's some amazingly talented people there. And Instagram is the de facto first place most people go to scroll and like waste their time and consume content. And there's an interesting opportunity there too, for sure.
Yeah, my take is when you're starting out and you want to build an audience, you really do need to pick one platform and really just try to optimize it as well as you can. And it might be attractive to be like, oh, I already have these shorts. I might as well put them on Instagram, or I might as well put them
Mm.
on TikTok. But it's like, but now you're thinking about those other platforms when you should really be thinking about how do I become known on YouTube? For the next 6 months, I'm only going to focus on being known on YouTube. And I know I'm going to miss out on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my take right now on building audiences.
Good advice. Focus, focus, focus. Cool.
Yeah.
I probably needed to hear that.
Well, I feel like, dude, you can do a commit action version of it just for like audience builders. So it's like sign up to, you know, commitaudience.com, and every single day we're going to give you, like, we're your audience productivity expert, and we're going to give you
Mm.
advice on how your content really is. Like, for example, for me, I hate listening to myself or watching myself on YouTube. I like can't. It's like super cringeworthy. But if I had like an expert just give me notes and tell me what I did wrong this week in terms of social media, like, yeah, I'd pay for that monthly.
Oh, interesting. There you go. Greg throwing out bootstrap business ideas. Yeah, cool.
Take it, dude. Take it. Sleep on it.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it. I mean, I definitely think that our like coaches at Commit Action often find themselves in that role of like,
Mm.
they're there to give structure and accountability and create that best practice of planning the week, but they often become these like allies. And I mean, they get fully embedded on the client's team and will be reacting to the stuff they're putting out there in the world. We have so many clients that a big part of why they use the service is to execute on these like long tail creative goals where you have to ship stuff every single day and like watch that audience like cumulatively compoundingly build in the long term. So yeah, I think you're right.
Before we head out, what's the biggest tip you can give to folks around productivity?
Biggest tip around productivity is you're crazy to do it alone, right? Like I said, we're social primates. We're hardwired to perform at our best. Hundreds of millions of years of evolution have optimized human beings to be at their best when they're working together in groups. And one of the really dangerous things for entrepreneurs, for creators out there in today's world, is that we are really socially isolated, right? These parasocial relationships behind through the screen, they don't do to our monkey mind, to our animal brain, what actual social connection does. So the first basic tip for improving productivity and focus is to have people in your life who care, who you talk to about your goals and you talk to about your implementation intentions. If you've got friends that you're discussing mutually with where and when am I going to work on my biggest ideas, and then they're checking back in with you. You're simulating what we do like at a professional level at Commit Action, and it works. That the science on it is like case closed, overwhelming evidence. Just even the anticipation of social accountability that it might happen is shown to improve people's follow through on goals by up to 100%, right? Like there's some wild studies out there about how this stuff is effective. So I think the tendency for a lot of people starting out or working on anything big is like take it into the bat cave, keep it secret, keep it safe, right? Like just like work on it until the world is ready. But you got to get some allies. You got to add some accountability, because that's what sharpens the focus. That's how human beings were meant to do their best work.
And a bonus tip, of course, is to go hang out with Jean-Claude Van Damme in Lithuania and don't listen to anything he says.
Oh, dude, I'll never forget pounding champagne with JCVD at that scary ass nightclub. Deep in the heart of Vilnius, Lithuania. That
Yeah.
was to this day one of the craziest nights of my entire life, shared with Mr. Greg Eisenberg.
We do it. We do it for these pinch me moments, I think that's the fun part about entrepreneurship is it puts you in places you wouldn't think are possible.
Stop bootstrapping something one day, you wake up
Yeah.
in Vilnius, Lithuania, drinking champagne with JCVD.
Totally. We love to see it. All right, man. Well, where could people find you on the internet?
Well, you can check out my brand new YouTube channel. It's just under Peter Shallard. And you can also find what I've built at commitaction.com. If you want to come take a look at what we're up to there, there's a ton of amazing free resources. On the nav menu there, there's an entire free training workshop. You can get all of our methodology, everything our coaches know how to do. It's all available for you to download and plug into your life. And if you want to take a look at, adding a pro to your personal productivity stack, that's an option there too. So Commit Action, or just Google my name. I'm the only me in the whole world. You can find me, my website, everywhere. Peter Shallard.
That's a low key flex. I like it. I like that. All right, that's the pod. Thanks.